Welcome to Whores Talk Horror.
We're not really whores. We just like wordplay.
And we'll just go for it.
All right.
And that's going in the outtakes.
Because I can't do raspberries.
What?
I can't do that.
You just did it.
Oh, wait. I usually
not
go
know how to do a raspberry.
like that. Oh, I guess I
There
can.
you go.
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever done that. Were you recording that? Because that was the first time I've ever done that.
We recorded Mindy's first raspberry. Yay?
Adulthood, ladies and gentlemen. We're adulting over here.
I fucking hate that term. Anyways. Oh, are we on? Welcome to Whores Talk Horror. I'm Sharon.
I'm Melinda.
And tomorrow is the first day of Halloween month.
What?
Our favorite time of the year. And
October. She means October, to clarify. Just in case. I don't know.
just in case
Maybe somebody's not looking at a calendar.
And just in case someone tuned into Horse Talk Horror because they just thought it was going to be like a bunch of, I don't know, prostitutes like hanging out, like giving tips to each other on, I don't know, how to do horror things.
Anyway, this is not about that. It's about horror movies and subjects and...
And to prepare for Halloween month, we decided to come up with a list of 31 horror movies because I don't know, well, I know Mindy does not do this, but every year since I would say about 2012, I have tried to watch 31 horror movies in the month of October. And some years I succeed, some years I fail, some years I come close. And I always try and watch movies that I've never seen before. So we decided to come up with a list of 31 horror movies to help you guys if you're looking for any recommendations on things to watch. Mm-hmm. While these are not the most popular horror movies, you know, you have your classics that we did not put on the list, like obviously Halloween.
Or Nightmare on Elm Street.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's a lot of good ones that we had to kind of edit.
Like The Given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rosemary's Baby, The Shining, Exorcist,
Right.
You know.
What have you.
Most of our listeners, I think, have probably seen all those movies. So let's just start with The Entity. It's from 1982. It stars Barbara Hershey.
As in Beaches, Barbara Hershey.
Yes, for all you Beaches fans out there that are listening.
Speaking of scary, but no, I'm just kidding.
I've never seen Beaches. Anyways,
That's okay.
It's about a woman who's tormented and sexually molested by an invisible ghost demon, an entity.
Based on a true story, right?
Supposedly, it is based on a true story. I don't know how loosely based it is on it, but it's really, really good. I will have to say it is my favorite ghost rape movie.
Well, on that note, I'm just sitting here laughing because the first time I saw it, Sharon let me borrow her DVD, and I had done some just a tiny bit of research of it, like behind it. And there were there's a special out there somewhere, I think, that you could probably find on the YouTubes. But like, they talk about how this woman did have all of these things happening to her, but like, it was originally written off because she was a pretty heavy alcoholic. And I just remember Sharon saying to me, well, no, but there were scientists that recorded this stuff. It's not like they were like, oh, she's just some dumb drunk bitch.
I do not remember saying that.
It was funny, and it's true, though. No, it's true. Like, this woman supposedly did have, like, there was actually a group on hand that, like, witnessed these events. So you're right. It's not that she was just, like, an alcoholic making it up. So, but the movie is pretty terrifying.
Yeah, I really like this movie. I think it's pretty scary.
Like, in the violating your personal space kind of way, it's a little terrifying.
Yeah, and obviously rape, I mean, is a fucking horrifying thing to happen to someone, but if you're not able to see the person, which is kind of the whole point of this, is that a lot of people didn't believe her, and after these events happened, she would have bruises on her, and it looked like someone was beating her or abusing her, but there was no one to blame. There was not, any physical evidence that a person did this to her. So yeah, it's a very interesting story, and it's definitely not like any other horror movie that I've seen before.
Good point. Okay, so I put this on the top of the list because I'm the one who's going to have a few classics mixed in there. So I had to add The Haunting 1963, which I talked about in a previous episode. But then I also put for number 2, The Haunting 1999, which was a remake that I wrote. I literally have written here, get scared by how bad a movie can be. Ha ha. Ha. But for real though, no offense, Catherine Zeta-Jones and Lily Taylor and Liam Neeson, they're all in that movie. But the remake in 1999 is really bad. Like, even if you don't even like the original movie is a classic. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Or if you don't want to watch a bad movie just to be scared by how bad it could be, I would honestly then recommend The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix if you have time, the miniseries. But
yeah, that was really good.
yeah, it was. So the movie, 1963's version of The Haunting, directed by Robert Wise. And then I just had to follow that up with my little joke. But to be serious, if you're looking for a good scare that's actually good to watch and you feel like giving it the time, check out Netflix's reimagining.
I agree.
Sharon?
The next movie that I have, which I think is kind of making a resurgence as of recently, because I've been seeing a lot more people talking about this movie and posting about it.
Oh, good.
Is Tourist Trap from 1979. And it's a crazy fucking film. The first like 5-10 minutes of this movie alone, I was like totally sucked in. And it's about a bunch of teenagers that come across some psychopath with telekinetic powers, and he uses his telekinetic powers to animate these various mannequins that he keeps in his house that are like his only friends, I guess. And that's all I'm really gonna say about it. But
Sharon told me about this movie, and if it's on Shudder, right? I don't know. I think
that's how I watched it.
Yeah, but I have to say that, like, not to be punny about the title, but it is totally a hidden gem for sure. Because, like, I hadn't heard about this movie, and Sharon was like, "Have you seen this? You should watch this," and it's worth it. It's worth a viewing for sure.
Definitely, yeah. If you've not seen this, check it out. I believe it is still on Shudder.
I think so. I think I just saw it recently. Sweet. My next movie is I've only seen it on Netflix, I think, but it's called Veronica, and I should check that it's still on Netflix. But it is a movie. It is subtitled in Spanish or in English from Spanish dialogue, and it is your classic teenager. It's fairly recently made. It's your classic teenager and her friends at a Catholic high school, of course. Get on a Ouija board. There's a dead parent involved. And then I don't really want to say much more after that, but something weird happens when the Ouija board gets used, and then life changes. And at the heart of it is the main character, Veronica, who's this main teenage girl. And I honestly, the one thing I will compare it to is I feel like it's one of those movies where there's very small little details that change that make it extra creepy. And I feel like I can compare it to an Ari Aster movie, and it kind of reminds me to Hereditary, which I'm just going to skip ahead because that's actually also on my list. But I feel like the two sort of are a little similar, but Veronica is super freaking scary. It's great. Find it on Netflix. Watch it. It's awesome, and it was not expected. It was very unexpected.
I honestly don't remember you ever even telling me about this movie. So
I did, but I don't think you watched it last year.
Well, I definitely didn't watch it.
You always have a list, so you've got a lot usually to do.
No, I'm going to have to probably put that on my list for this year if I'm going to try and do 31 movies that I've not seen before.
And then you could do 2 movies next, because I had already mentioned Hereditary, which I kind of have on the list after.
Cool. So I have Black Christmas, the 1974 version.
What?
Not the fucking remake, which is absolutely fucking horrible. I do not recommend the remake at all.
Thank you, Sharon.
I love Black Christmas, the original, so much.
Me too. It's like one of my favorites.
It's probably one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yay!
Let alone...
I told you to watch it.
You did tell me to watch it. So this one... If you've not seen it, it's kind of, a lot of people might hate me for this, but I think it might be better than the original Halloween. I don't know. It's definitely scarier, I think.
I actually just like flew back from my mic just now. No, but I agree. I love, and I feel like it predates When a Stranger Calls, the original.
Yes.
Because can we say that it's the first The Call is Coming from Inside Your House movie?
Yes, this movie came out, I believe, like 5 years before the original When a Stranger Calls comes out. So it is the original, like, well, as far as I know, I don't know of any other movies that came out before this that are, The Call is Coming from Inside the House type of thing. But yeah, I love this movie so much. And Spencer told me that they are doing another remake of this, which I have fucking zero hopes for. But also, he did say that they're going to do like a little bit of a new twist on it where the women actually get revenge, because in the remake, it was over the top gore, trying to be like fucking gore porn, and I didn't think it was scary at all. The only thing I appreciated about the remake was the fact that they told more of a backstory about the killer, which in the original, you know virtually nothing about the killer, which also kind of makes it a little creepier.
I agree completely.
Because it's just this like rando who's like hiding in a sorority house, like murdering women, and it's like, what the fuck?
It's also really fun to mention that this is directed by the same guy who did Christmas Story, as in like You'll Shoot Your Eye Out Christmas Story.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Bob Clark did both movies.
Interesting.
Which is really funny, but I also feel like making a remake of this is sort of a moot point because, and I won't go into detail because people need to watch it, but there's certain like, we'll say women's lib issues that are dealt with in a 1970 movie.
Oh yeah, they
that are
totally deal with the topic of abortion and a woman's right to choose.
In a big, Olivia Hussey has always been one of my favorites. She's the star. She's the final girl, I guess, spoiler alert, but you could tell from the beginning. Like, she's awesome. But like, I remember the first time I saw that movie, I was like, this was made when? And they're having this conversation?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the women in this movie are kind of fucking badasses, and they're not all just like running around topless. In fact, I don't even think there's any nudity in this.
And if anybody dies, it's because of an accidental whatsoever, or they didn't look, or whatever. Like, it's nobody being stupid, really. Yeah, I love this movie so much. I can't even say. And although I will say that Keir Duwala, who's Dave from 2001, he's in it, and my mom always goes, he just creeps me out. I just had to throw that in there for fun. We can cut that if we need to.
Yeah, that's a little too. Like, I have no idea what you're saying. Kirda, who?
People will know who. People will know who that is.
Okay. So next on my list is Murder Party.
Yes.
Which is a super fun horror movie. And I don't know why it has such low ratings on IMDb. Not that I fucking care. But I was surprised that so many people, had negative reviews of it, because it's just so entertaining to me. It's like kind of over the top. I know it's definitely over the top, silly. It's I wouldn't really say it's scary. It's kind of gory, but I don't know. I fucking enjoyed it so much. So if you've been looking at this movie on Shudder or wherever else, probably Amazon, and trying to decide whether or not you should watch it.
Yeah, I think I saw it on Amazon, yeah.
Just watch it.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
And if you don't like it, I don't care. I don't care, because I liked it.
Stance. Okay, my next movie, I'm going for the tried and true. Sorry, but I love Scream. I still do. The original. It's funny when you watch it now. I feel like now it's a little too much meta, because everybody does that now. But there is no better opening scene than Drew Barrymore on that phone, talking with her cute little voice, and he asks her name, and she says, "Why do you want to know my name so much?" And he goes, "Because I want to know who I'm looking at." And she says, "I'm sorry, what did you say?" And he goes, "Because I want to know who I'm talking to." She goes, "That's not what you said." That moment on, it's funny. It's awesome. It has who is now a Twin Peaks alumni. Matthew Lillard is in it, very young. But I don't know. I think that original is badass.
I fucking love the original. I actually kind of enjoy all of them, just because I think they're all kind of fun, even though the original is by far the best.
The fourth one scares me. It has a scene with her. She has a dream about her dead mom, and it scares me.
Is that the one with Laurie Metcalf?
No, it's the second one. And Timothy Oliphant, actually.
Oh.
That's neither here nor there. But the first one, I still think is the best, and I love it to death. So it's on my list.
Side note, I have a really funny story. Mindy and I, when we were probably just out of high school, I think we were like freshmen in college, Mindy's parents were out of town, and I was spending the night, and we were watching Scream, and we had some friends over, including my boyfriend. And there was that line in the movie where
It's the Drew Barrymore scene.
From that scene, and it's when the guy on the phone says to Drew Barrymore, he's like, "I'm gonna gut you like a fish, bitch." And we couldn't think of the line, and so we were trying to think it, and we're like, what is it? And someone said something like, "You want to go fishing, bitch?" We thought that was hilarious.
It's like worst serial killer ever.
Right? Worst serial killer line ever. So anyways, like all our friends go home. Mindy and I are in bed. It's now like 1 or 2 in the morning and her phone rings out of nowhere. And so we're like, well, what if it's her parents and they're in trouble? Like, so Mindy answers the phone and she just like starts laughing and hands me the phone. And I'm like, hello? And on the other end, all I hear is, "You want to go fishing, bitch?"
Well, and it was funny because it was our friend calling to like try and scare us in a funny way. But when I answered the phone, all I heard was, "Do you want to go fishing, bitch?" Ah, shit, I fucked that up. And like that, like made me laugh even more. So yeah, maybe we just think it's funny, but like worst serial killer ever.
Is it my turn again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do it.
So the next movie is probably a pretty not well-known movie called Happy Birthday to Me. It's from 1981, and I don't know if anyone out there watched Little House on the Prairie when they were growing up, but it stars the oldest daughter from that show. I'm probably the only one who knows that.
Which I didn't even know that, actually, when I watched it.
But yeah, so anyways, that's really not important. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of the movie April Fool's Day, which I was very much debating on whether or not I should put that on this list.
Good. Yep.
But if you liked April Fool's Day, you'll probably like this. It's kind of like who's the serial killer kind of thing. They, all signs kind of point towards the main person, but is there something else going on? But it's basically just about a group of wealthy friends at this academy, this school, and all of a sudden people start dying, and I'm not gonna say too much more about it.
And how old are they? Like they're younger.
I think
Aren't they, right? It's been a while.
You know what? It has been a little while. I think the academy. I think it's a high school academy.
So not like it's not like one of those like college like
I think they're
movies.
like I think they're like it's not. No, it's nothing like that. I think it's they're like 16, 17 years old, and her friends start dying. She's got kind of a mysterious past, and I really enjoyed it. So check it out.
Cool. Okay, so I am doing a 2-for-1. And for those of you who've seen this movie, you may agree with me. I've heard a lot of people do, but I'm going to do the original Rec 1 and 2, and that's REC as in recording. It is a Spanish movie. Well, they both are. It's a found footage movie from, like, I want to say the mid-90s-ish, and that movie with the sister from Dexter, I forget her name.
Jennifer Carpenter.
Thank you, yes. Quarantine is the American remake of this, but the Spanish version that's subtitled, like, we've all seen found footage, like, zombie movies, let's face it. Like, we're over it. But this was made before we were all over it, and I only saw it like fairly recently, within like the past 2-3 years, because if you rent it on Amazon or on iTunes, they are dubbed, both versions, and very badly dubbed at that. So I was able to watch it on Shudder with the subtitles, which I highly recommend. A lot of people say that 1 and 2 should just be one movie because 2 literally it starts like right where the first one ends. But I got the shit scared out of me. And like I said, I was over and done with vampire like found footage movies. So, or not vampire, I'm sorry, zombie found footage movies. But it's a reporter who is shadowing like a emergency response team for a story, and they're doing it live on air. And they get called to an apartment building where people are reporting an illness of some sort taking place within the building, and they get quarantined, hence the name of the American movie. But what happens after that is literally quite terrifying, actually. And both movies, in fact, the second movie caps the first one so well. I can't recommend them enough. Just please make sure that you watch the actual version. And this isn't like just like one of those like snobby, you have to watch it with the subtitles. Like the dubbing is so bad, it's distracting from the movie.
How many zombie found footage movies are there?
I have no idea. There's a number of wreck movies, but the first two are the only ones I'm
I wasn't
recommending.
sure if you were saying you're sick of zombie movies / found footage movies, because yes, for a while
I kind of think both.
Okay.
We've reached our quota.
I'm trying to. I don't remember any zombie found footage movies.
No, there's not a lot. But this movie's wreck is so good. But like, I was like, when I did rent it from iTunes, and I was like, okay, it's dubbed, but like, come on, I want to see it. I couldn't make it 10 minutes. That's how bad the dubbing was. So make sure you do find the subtitle version. But it's actually really scary and really good. Both of them. So I'm using my 2 for 1.
So there might be a lot more than actually 31 movies, which that's cool. So the next movie I chose, which, God, I'm so glad I discovered this movie. And every single person out there that grew up in the 80s, even if you don't like this movie, I think you would really, really just appreciate it for how well done it is. It is the WNUF Halloween special from 2013, but they make the movie look like it's from the 80s. In fact, it takes place Halloween night in 1987, and it's basically supposed to look like a live news broadcast where they're at this infamous house, the Weber house, which is the site of ghastly murders. And a local television personality leads a group of paranormal investigators, including a Catholic exorcist and also a famous husband and wife team, which I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be like, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's kind of this live footage, and they add in commercials, which are exactly like the commercials that used to be on TV when we were growing up. I mean, it looks so much like almost like a found, like someone took an old, popped in an old like beta cassette of
or
like
VHS,
yeah. Oh yeah.
They were more prevalent, let's be honest.
We had a beta machine. I know.
So did we. We were the only weirdos.
Then you got a VHS.
No, but for real, like that's what I was gonna say is that like there's even parts where like whoever, like it's as if you're watching someone else is watching the tape and they fast forward.
Yes.
Dude,
yes.
it's really well done.
It's fucking brilliant in my
Sharon and I watched
opinion.
it. We kept going, wait, this is fake, right? Like, or did someone take, is this really, what? It was awesome. It's really fun.
And it used to be on Shudder. Now I think you can get it or see it on Amazon Prime, or you can, honestly, I just kind of want to buy it because it is kind of hard to find.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so fucking fun. But yeah. And Mindy, what's your next movie?
All right, I'm going to say it. Paranormal Activity 3. It's the one from the 80s where,
also with the camcorder.
Also with the camcorder, so I'm sort of following a theme a little bit, sort of, not really, that just happened. But anyway, we did kind of go from wreck with the camcorder, because they had a camcorder at that, I think, in that movie. Maybe they were newer. But Paranormal Activity 3, yes, say what you will about those movies, but when the first one came out, it scared the bejesus out of everybody the first time they saw it. And I am a sucker for these movies for some reason because of that. But the third movie I actually thought was one of the most well done and honestly one of the scariest.
I agree.
That ending, like the last 15 minutes, I swear to God, I've had a nightmare about like half of those visuals. But for those of you who care because I feel like you can watch it and not necessarily have seen the first two movies. But basically, the idea is that the story is supposed to follow these two sisters, Christy and Katie, and they're followed by this demon. And this is sort of the prequel that explains sort of how it all started. Kind of doesn't matter. It's set in the 80s. Weird stuff happens with this family who the mom's boyfriend is like a wedding videographer. And so he sets up tapes all over. And as my one friend likes to say, it introduces the oscillating camera cam, where he takes an oscillating fan, puts a camera on it. And as my friend says, it scans through and there's nothing happening. And it scans back, there's nothing happening. And then, oh my God, there's something there. Well, it's worth it. Watch it. It's a good, subtle, awesome freak out movie. I love it.
I kind of want to watch that again.
I kind of do too,
like,
honestly.
Tonight.
Yep, me too. Agreed.
All right, so my next pick, we have a lot of foreign movies on our list, I've just realized, which I think there's so many other countries that make
and I'm not
really fucking good horror movies. Yeah, this is a very short list. So my next pick is Housebound, which is from New Zealand, and it's about a girl who is basically placed on house arrest, and she has to move back in with her mom, and she thinks that maybe her house is haunted. And I don't really want to give anything away, but it is a super unique twist on a haunted house movie, and it's really good and it's really funny. And this is also another movie that I need to rewatch because I remember loving it so much.
I actually thought that Sharon was talking about a different movie initially, and then when she started talking about this one, I put my fist in the air, so you can't see that or hear that.
Fist bump.
You know what I mean? I did an air fist bump because I was very excited. Yes, check this movie out. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Good one. My next movie, I guess, is The Skeleton Key. And I added this because actually a good friend of mine also was talking with me about this movie and was like, I can't get this out of my head. And I bought this used. It's with Kate Hudson, and it's from, I don't know, mid-2000s. And Jenna fucking Rollins is in it, motherfuckers. Give it up. See it for that reason only. But it's set on location in New Orleans. Kate Hudson is a nurse who goes to stay in this gorgeous, huge plantation home that is owned by Jenna Rollins, and she is set to take care of Jenna Rollins' quote ailing husband, who is played by John motherfucking Hurt. And then Pete Sarsgaard is like the family trust banker or lawyer or whatever. And it's one of those movies that I watched it, and there were times where I was kind of nerve-wracked, but I wasn't scared totally. And then it wasn't until the very end where I went, oh my God, this has been happening oh God, okay, that's really, really scary. So I'm including it because it's not super scary as you're watching it, and you might be like, Melinda is crazy. What is wrong with her? But the ending, if you think about what the implication, as Dennis Reynolds would say, of the ending means, it's really actually terrifying. So Skeleton Key with Kate Hudson, look it up.
Is it bad that I don't really remember this movie? I remember watching it.
I know, and I think that you weren't super impressed because my mom watched it and she wasn't super impressed. And then I was like, well, think about blah, 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 blah. And I explained the ending and she went, okay, I gotta watch it again. You're right. That's terrifying. So,
all right. So next on my list is I'm gonna pull a Mindy, and I'm gonna kind of make these two movies one.
Do it.
So it's The Collector, and then there is also The Collection, which is the sequel. All right. So this movie, I fucking loved it, and I'm not. Other than the fact that I'm just gonna say it's an insane home invasion movie, and whoever came up with this plot and whoever did the set design on this movie, there's a lot of booby traps. I'm just gonna say
boobies or booby traps.
There's a lot of booby traps. Like Data from the Goonies. Yeah, no, this movie is violent and crazy and fun, and just it's kind of like Cube, but in your house. Like, imagine if you've ever seen the movie Cube, where these people like would just wake up in this cube and they have to. It's been a long time since I've seen Cube, but that's pretty much the fucking gist
But
of
in
it.
your house. Okay.
These people just wake up in a fucking cube and they have to go from cube to cube to cube, and some of them have these insane booby traps that'll just fucking fuck your shit up. Imagine just waking up in your house one day, although that's not really what happens. They don't just wake up, but just imagine you come home one day from like the grocery store and your house is now like Cube. But you don't really realize it.
Where am I going to put the bananas?
And every fucking room is just tripped out with these insane booby traps that, like, I don't even know how the writer of this movie came up with some of these ideas, but it's some of the most fun ways I've ever seen for people to get tortured. So there you go.
I'm going to go with another tried and true, but 28 Days Later, another zombie movie. This one is not first person perspective or whatever, found footage, but I feel like this movie deserves its spot on the chart, if only for those opening sequences where Cillian Murphy is walking around London and it is just dead, because they actually did that. Like, they closed off parts of the streets, but they filmed it like ungodly hours of the morning, and like it's just creepy as fuck to see Big Ben and there be like no traffic. Like, it's just, but it's an awesome movie aside from that. So I'm adding it because it deserves to be there.
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of my, if not my favorite zombie movie ever.
Yeah.
Because
there's scary
nothing,
zombies too that are like growling and fast and creepy.
the fast zombies are the fucking
they're the worst.
Creepiest. All right, so to keep on with the whole foreign horror movie theme that we have going.
Sure.
This is a Spanish horror movie called Sleep Tight. It's from 2011. Have you seen this?
I have not, actually.
Really good. It's more of a psychological horror movie about a horrible doorman at
this movie. Okay.
apartment building or condo or whatever, and he basically has like zero ability to be happy, and so he decides to make it his mission to basically ruin the lives of everyone around him.
Great.
And a lot of people, like myself included, some people you can just aggravate the shit out of them really, really easily and just ruin their day. But there's one woman who lives in the building and she's just always happy, and it's really, really hard to upset her. So he starts breaking into her apartment without her knowing and doing little things to make her, psychologically just break down and just destroy her life. And it's kind of my worst nightmare as a germaphobe, some of the things that he does.
Well, see, like, I know that my back door, I push the garbage in my toolbox in front of the back door so no one could really break in. And I do the same with my front door. And my apartment's not big enough.
But you can't do that when you're not home.
Yeah, but where's anybody going to hide in my apartment? It's not that big.
For sure. But this is the thing. He comes in when she's not home and does things and then leaves.
That's why you check under your bed. Oh, and then he leaves. I thought he
leaves.
Oh.
Well, sometimes he stays, but he does a lot of things that are disgusting, and then he leaves, and that's kind of my worst nightmare. So anyways, I really, really like this movie. It's not your typical like jump scare. It is a straight up psychological horror, and I think it's really well done.
So because it's Halloween, I had to put on Trick or Treat. It's Trick-or-Treat, as in the letter R, in case you're looking it up. It is an anthology of short stories about Halloween night. That's pretty much all I'm going to say, but there's a lot of guest stars in it, a lot of really famous actors, not so famous actors. There's a Battlestar Galactica alum, but all of the stories in the anthology have to do with the night of Halloween and things that may or may not happen. And it's just really fun, and some of them are really creepy. And Anna Paquin's a badass in it. Like, really, that's kind of all you need to know. But I highly recommend it. It's a good time. It's a lot of fun.
This is one of the better anthology movies, I think, because you can either do them really good and like really like interweave the stories,
yeah,
or you can just kind of like randomly throw some stories together and try and get them to fucking be cohesive. And yeah, I love this movie.
This one's good. I was going to put in the Tales of Halloween just because that's held together by a radio host that is played by Adrienne Barbeau. But I don't know. Trick or Treat's better, I think. Sorry, Adrienne. But yeah, so that's next on my list. Sharon?
I guess I have another twofer.
Ooh, okay.
Because I had a really hard time deciding which of these I was going to go with. They're both Ty West movies. The one I decided to go with was House of the Devil, because it really, really, really has that 80s vibe. If this is the first time you're listening, I'll just let you know we both really, really love the 80s because we grew up in the 80s.
Anti-West.
Anti-West, but yeah, whatever. The 80s, though. Let's get back to the 80s. No, I just love everything about the 80s, the whole look, the feel. I mean, you know, like Stranger Things, they did like perfect example for like how to do that well. It makes you really feel like you're in that time period. And I think House of the Devil, it really, really made me feel like I was watching a movie that was made in the 80s. Yeah,
Sharon told me to watch it, and I actually was like, how did we miss this? Because I did think it was a movie from the 80s. Then I looked it up, and I was like, oh my God, this was made, what, 2009? Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
And also, as I said before, Ty West, if you're single, call me.
But it's basically, if you've not heard of this movie, it is about a college student who's broke and decides to take a really weird babysitting job that so I'm gonna say just she goes to a really creepy house out in the middle of the country and some fucking shit happens.
Oh, and there's like an eclipse happening, right?
Maybe.
That's
way too much information, Minnie. No. Yes, it takes place during an eclipse.
It's a good fall feel kind of movie too, I feel like.
Yeah, and it's like a you know, a lot of people don't like this movie because it's a very slow burn, and I appreciate that, and I think it's very well done, and I think it kind of, even though it's a slow burn, it maintains that sense of tension throughout the whole movie, which also brings me to the other movie that I did not mention, but I'm just going to throw it in really quick, which is The Innkeepers, which is another Ty West movie that's a very slow burn that a lot of people fucking hate, and you know what? That type of movie is not for everyone, but I think there's some really good scares in both, and I think they're both worth checking out.
So my hand like shot up as soon as Sharon said that, because one of my pet peeves about modern horror movies is that jump scares do not make a great horror movie. You need to know how to build tension. I'm sorry, but you do. That's what Alfred Hitchcock did. That's what all the greats did. And Ty West knows how to do that. And I think that Sharon's right. House of the Devil and The Innkeepers are both absolutely perfect examples of that, because you're scared half the movie and you don't even know why. And that's why it's awesome. So sorry, I just had to rant a little bit. That's all I'll say.
Well, speaking of tension, I think I'm going to just go to the next one really quick because it's high tension.
Yeah.
And the first time I ever watched this movie, I was living out in the country by myself, watching this in the dark at night, and my house and my neighborhood were already super fucking creepy, and I don't even know how I was able to go to sleep that night. But High Tension has always been one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah.
For those of you I don't really want to say anything in case you haven't seen it. You kind of have to watch it with a little bit of suspension of disbelief. That's
there's an easy breakdown. Two girls go to study at a girl's house during spring break.
Oh,
boom.
yeah. During a secluded farmhouse out in the middle of they're in France, I believe. It's a French horror movie. I think it's scary as fuck. I mean, the movie lives up to its name. It really creates high tension.
Honestly, like, I was watching this when I still lived with a roommate. She came home from work and she hated scary movies, and she was like, "Oh my God, shut this off!" And I was like, "I can't!" Like, I had to like see what was going to happen next.
The ending is not perfect, which is where the whole suspension of disbelief thing kind of. But you know what?
Ending.
Okay, I like the very, very ending, but you know what I'm talking about. There is a part where you're like, how is any of this, you know, I don't want to say too much in case you haven't seen it. I'm sure most of you have, but whatever. It's a fucking horror movie. get over it. You have to ignore giant plot holes sometimes just to enjoy it.
And the very last second of the movie scared the bejesus out of me.
Yeah.
So good call, Sharon. I like that one.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back to old school for a bit and do Carnival of Souls because I honestly I feel like when you watch that movie, you can see traces of I remember the first time I watched it with a friend of mine and they were like, well, clearly David Lynch saw this movie. I feel like there's a lot of things that you see resonating in modern horror movies, but it's the 60s, I think, mid 60s that it was made. It's black and white and it is just in terms of gender roles. And then again, the building of suspense and terror with some really,
it's kind of trippy.
Yeah, I was gonna say trippy visual payoff. It's a good old school horror movie. I really like it. And the cheese factor sort of makes it better. There are parts where I feel like it's almost intentionally bad, but I love it. And then the ending, I've always really loved it. There are parts that still genuinely creep me out. It's in black and white. Check it out. I know it's on the Criterion channel if you have that service that you pay for. It might be.
I think it might be on Shudder.
I was gonna Shudder might bring it back for Halloween. Yeah,
I think that's where I watched it.
Look it up. I'd say.
I have a side note about this movie, actually. I just happened to be near where they filmed that sort of carnival-y
Shut your
building
mouth.
place, which I think burned down. I couldn't find where it was, but I was there.
That's
And
so
I was
scary.
Like, this looks really similar to this movie that we just saw. And so I looked it up at the filming locations. I was like, yeah, it's down the road.
From here?
No, from where we were. It's in Utah. It's in Utah.
I was gonna say sorry.
But I tried to see it, but I couldn't find it.
Thank you, Spencer.
Not
Beagle.
in Illinois, Mindy. That's funny.
Should I do another one? I don't know. Did you do two for it? No.
Well, I did 2 in a row just because we were talking about tension and my next movie was high tension. But if you want to do another one, sure.
My next one's kind of about tension. And Sharon was like,
I mean, we're over the whole tension thing because you just did Carnival of Souls, but
It builds tension though. There's a lot of there's moments that are strange and whatever, but Sharon goes, I knew you were going to include this anyway. But all my friends make fun of me for liking As Above, So Below. It's another found footage movie. It is the only movie that the French government allowed ever to be filmed in the actual French catacombs.
which I'm going to next month,
Don't even start.
right before Halloween, bitches.
Don't even start.
So excited.
Stay on the route. Do not try and venture into the unrouted areas of the catacombs. 'Cause
Oh,
you
I'm gonna
might
wander.
end up in Dante's Inferno. Oh God, I said too much already. But basically, the movie's about it. It's what I love about this movie is that it's equally awesome and equally terrible, kind of. And I mean that in the best way, because it starts off where it's found footage. It's this woman, Scarlett, who, of course, her name's Scarlett, and she's British and beautiful, and she speaks 50. She's basically, the directors said that they wanted to make her a female Indiana Jones, and so there's a dude making a video about her search for the Philosopher's Stone because her father was this huge expert in alchemy. I watched it as a hate watch the first time. Then they got underground into the catacombs and it is scary as F. So do it. Sit through the 20 minutes of silly and get to the catacombs. It's so worth it.
All right.
That's all I'm going to say.
I'm going to watch it on the plane.
Just don't go to the unmarked territories. That's all I'm telling you.
I'll go where I want.
Oh, and there's a beautiful shot of Notre Dame, I should say, too, which sadly caught on fire. But there's a beautiful, beautiful shot of it lit up at night in this movie. So if anything else, just watch it for that.
All right. So my next movie is When a Stranger Calls. But I am actually choosing the remake from 2006, which I know a lot of people don't like. But I don't really care because this movie scared the fucking shit out of me, and then I rewatched it with Mindy, and it scared the shit out of both of us. And the house in this movie is kind of what makes it for me and is the reason why I chose it. Obviously, the first one, it's a classic. The first, 15, 20 minutes of the first movie, and then the end of the first movie,
Yeah.
I mean, they're terrifying.
Absolutely.
But this one, I just love how beautiful this house is, and there's a lot of imagery and a lot of shots that were that use light and dark, light and shadows, and she's in this huge house where everything is kind of like on motion sensors. So if you walk into one room, lights will just automatically go on. So as she's like walking around, you don't really know if she's alone, if she's not alone. She's getting these calls. It starts getting creepy. There's lights outside too, and it's very windy. And there's kind of this almost like a courtyard in the center of the house that has a lot of things like blowing around and casting shadows. And just the way they shot everything was really gorgeous, and it just kind of led to all this like heightened tension for me, and you never really knew what was going to happen next, or what was like around the corner, or if she was ever really alone, or where this person was in the house, because they're in the house because it's like the first movie, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people hate this movie, and a lot of people criticize Camille Bell and her acting, which I never even honestly didn't really pay attention to it. She's a teenage girl. She's I'm not gonna like criticize some like poor young girl's acting performance, whatever.
Normally at this point I'd be yelling blasphemy, but I have to say what really impressed me about, because I'm a huge fan of the original, but the remake takes modern technology and like uses it in this way that is super, which is kind of what Sharon already said, but it uses it in this way that's so effective that makes it as scary as the original, but just makes you go, oh wait, now it's even almost scarier because we have things like cell phones and geo-tracking and like, motion sensor lights or whatever. If our house is totally automated, what if we're trying to hide from a killer? How are we going to do that? Like, it's a smart remake of a classic, one of the few, I'd say.
I like it.
I do too. Good call, Sharon.
Thank you.
Call, get it?
No, I don't get it.
I had to add on their Cabin in the Woods because, like, I wasn't going to put Evil Dead because, like, duh. But Cabin in the Woods, I love it. It was made with little to no fanfare. Finally got released a few years later, was a huge hit, but it is just everything and anything and the end-all be-all of every horror movie. So if you haven't seen Cabin in the Woods, you should change that and check it out.
Like immediately, if you have not seen this movie.
Like, I'm not going to say more than that.
Yeah.
Really. It's on my list.
Because most of you have probably seen it.
Scary, funny, awesome. You'll love it.
It's amazing. The next movie I have is The Loved Ones, which is an Australian horror movie. I love this movie. It reminds me of a cross between Carrie and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All I'm going to say is it's kind of a prom revenge movie.
That's a good way to put it.
Very fun. It's gory. I think it's creative. I don't know.
I'm not a fan of these kind of movies, and Sharon told me to watch it, and I loved it. So,
of like gore.
We'll
like
say
slasher.
That. Lots of gore, lots of unnecessary gore. Which I'm not saying the gore is unnecessary, but
yeah,
I don't want to say too much because I don't want to.
It's good.
Give it away.
Check it out.
So since it's Halloween again, I keep using it as a precursor. These two are not some of my favorite movies necessarily, but I think for Halloween, it's well worth checking out. These are my last two, and I'm gonna do a 2-for-1 because one's a sequel. But House LLC, it's on Shudder, and it's about these people who create haunted houses, and they rent out, and it's a found footage movie, and they rent out the supposedly haunted. I don't even remember what it is. It's like a community center or something.
No, wasn't it an actual house? I think it was an actual,
but like it's known to be haunted, and like they turned it into a haunted house, like professionally to invite
but it
people.
But
no, it was like
center.
It was like a bigger.
It was like an actual. Didn't actual murders take place there?
Well, we don't really know. Let's leave it at that.
I don't remember, but
in any case, they rent out this place that is supposed to be haunted, supposedly, and then they put on a show for Halloween. And that's really all I'm going to leave it at. I'm just going to say that because things happen, and it's cheesy and whatever, but it's found footage, and there are one or two moments that like Sharon and I specifically mentioned to each other that like really did, like there's one moment that legitimately like scares me still a little bit. So I think they're just fun, and then the sequel is sort of like what happened in the first movie, but it's equally as fun. And there's, I don't want to say a twist, but there's a little thing they throw in at the end of both movies that make you go, like it doesn't really make you feel like, oh, okay, everything's good now. You're like, there's still some scariness at the end. So
Yeah, I didn't see the sequel. I'm going to have to check that out. All right, so I guess Mindy's out of movies. I still have, I have 4 left.
What?
I think I was supposed to edit this down more.
That's fine.
I'm going to go through them really quickly. So I have The Devil's Candy, starring Ethan Embry from Can't Hardly Wait, which he was fucking so good in this movie. He plays a painter who is possessed by satanic forces. Yeah, they're living in this creepy old house in rural Texas, and this was on Netflix, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
And I was like, no. And finally I was like, all right, I'm running out of movies that I've not seen before. Put it on. Fucking loved it. If you're into metal music and Satan, this is for you. Not that I'm super into Satan, but I do like metal music. Anyways, next, another psychological thriller, not your typical horror movie. I don't even know if most people would like classify this as a horror movie, but I want to throw it in there. We need to talk about Kevin, starring Tilda Swinton and John C. Reilly. And it's, I find this movie really fascinating because Spencer and I talk about this all the time, the whole nature versus nurture thing.
I just think it's more tragic than anything, but
Well, yeah, but
but it's a good suspense.
It brings up the question, is it nature or nurture that makes someone become a killer or a psychopath? And this movie, it's definitely more, I'll
watch it and decide for yourself.
Watch it and decide for yourself. But I think it's terrifying, and it's kind of relevant to our times.
Very much so.
And then I have Baghead, which is directed by Mark and Jay Duplass, who,
woo-woo!
Yeah, they're fucking awesome. They did Creep and Creep 2, which did not make our list, but also check those out because they're also
please,
really, really good.
I forgot about Baghead. I'm actually really jealous that Sharon remembered it. I wish I would have put it on my list.
It's such a fun movie. It has Greta Gerwig, who I fucking love. It's about 4 struggling actors who go to a cabin in Big Bear, and they're trying to make a screenplay, and they're trying to write either, I think it was between like a love story or a horror movie. And as they're writing this movie, things maybe are coming true. And
the less said, the better, I think. But it's such a good movie.
It's funny. It's definitely got some scares.
Oh, yeah.
And it's super creative. And then finally, I'm going to end with Chained, which is directed by Jennifer Lynch. It's got a great cast. It has Vincent D'Onofrio, Eamon Farron.
Hey, we met him.
Who plays, oh yeah, he's super nice. Super nice, but in if you watch Twin Peaks season 3, he plays Richard Horn, and he's like the most sadistic, evil character in Twin Peaks season 3.
But just please don't let that fool you, because he was very sweet in person when we met him.
And in this movie, he plays the total opposite. He plays a young man being held prisoner by a cab driving serial killer and has to make a choice of whether to follow in his captor's footsteps or not. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But Jennifer Lynch is obviously the daughter of David Lynch. If you don't know, I guess that's not obvious to everyone, but daughter of David Lynch, the fucking brilliant director, writer, artist. And she is just as talented and creative as her father. And I didn't really know what to expect this movie, but I fucking loved it.
I just have to say that we went to David Lynch's Festival of Destruction last fall, and we met Eamon Farron there, and Sharon's opening words to him was like, "Oh my God, I saw Chained," and he was like, "You saw it? Oh my gosh, what did you think? And you loved it? Oh my God, Jen was so great to work with," and it was so cute because they had this little like interaction, and I just kind of watched Sharon like kind of fangirl a little bit, but it was very sweet because he was like very receptive, and he was like so glad that someone saw it. So I feel like let's get more people to watch it.
For sure.
It seems like it needs more. Like it seems like it's worth, myself included, like it's worth the attention. So
yeah, it's definitely worth the attention, and I don't think Jennifer Lynch gets as much credit as she deserves. And you know, I love amazing, talented, strong women, and she is definitely one of those. She fits into ticks all those boxes.
Absolutely.
So yeah, hopefully you have gotten some new recommendations, or maybe, you know, we mentioned some movies that you haven't seen in a while and you want to check out some old favorites that you've had. But I'm really excited for Halloween. And as we watch new movies this Halloween month, we will give you our recommendations.
We'll report back.
Or we'll, at least, at the very least, if we don't have time to record all of them, we will post them on social media.
Also, we'd be happy to take any recommendations too that you might have that we might not have mentioned, or if you're like, oh my God, you mentioned this movie, well, then you'd probably like this. Shoot them our way. We'd love it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to write us your recommendations, if you want to write us any scary stories, creepy stories, favorite Halloween stories.
Oh, yeah.
You can email us at whorestalkhorror@gmail.com. And as always,
Thanks for getting creepy with us.